She walks with confidence, not fear. That is the first sign that faith has gripped her heart. Confidence is not arrogance. It is the calm assurance that she knows who holds her life. Fear looks at the size of the mountain and trembles. Confidence looks at the size of God and moves forward. Fear magnifies the problem. Faith magnifies the promise. A woman blessed with faith has learned that fear is loud, but powerless, while faith is quiet, but unstoppable. She doesn't let fear dictate her choices because she knows fear is not her master. She walks in the confidence that she is covered, protected, and guided every step of the way. This confidence isn't built overnight. It is forged in the fire of trials. Every storm she survived has taught her that fear doesn't last, but God's faithfulness does. Every disappointment has reminded her that setbacks are only setups for greater breakthroughs. That's why she doesn't collapse when life gets heavy. Her history with God fuels her confidence for today. She remembers the times she didn't know how she would make it, but she did. She remembers the prayers she thought would never be answered, but they were. She remembers the nights she cried herself to sleep, only to wake up with fresh strength in the morning. All of it has become evidence that faith never fails, and that evidence produces confidence. Confidence doesn't mean she has no battles. It means she shows up to the battle knowing it's already won. Fear will always try to creep in, through bad news, through uncertainty, through voices that say she's not enough. But faith teaches her to silence those lies with truth. She doesn't let the enemy narrate her story. She doesn't let her past predict her future. She doesn't let her insecurity rob her of her identity. Instead, she stands firmly, shoulders back, declaring with her life, "I am more than a conqueror." That kind of confidence can't be faked. It can't be bought. It's the product of walking closely with God until fear has no room left to breathe. Her confidence also shapes how she carries herself. When she enters a room, she doesn't need to announce her worth. She doesn't need validation from people who don't understand her journey. She doesn't need approval from those who doubt her. She walks in the quiet power of someone who knows she belongs. Fear would have her shrinking back, apologizing for who she is, hiding her gifts so others won't feel threatened. But faith pushes her forward, reminding her that she was created with purpose, and no amount of intimidation can silence that. People may call it boldness, but it's simply faith in motion. And this confidence isn't just for her. It becomes a shield for those around her. When her family is panicking, her confidence brings peace. When her friends are ready to give up, her confidence reminds them that quitting is not an option. When her community is shaken, her confidence speaks stability. Fear is contagious, but so is faith. And because she has chosen to walk in faith instead of fear, her confidence spreads. Others begin to believe they too can rise. They too can stand. They too can move forward without trembling. That's the quiet influence of a woman whose confidence comes from faith. It changes the atmosphere everywhere she goes. Most importantly, her confidence is not rooted in herself. It's rooted in God. She knows she is human, fragile, and imperfect. She knows life is unpredictable and often unfair. But she also knows that her foundation is unshakable. That's why fear doesn't get the final word in her life. She may feel it, but she doesn't live by it. She may face it, but she doesn't bow to it. Faith teaches her to walk with her head lifted, her shoulders steady, and her steps firm. Confidence for her is not about being fearless. It's about trusting God so completely that fear loses its power to control her. That is the mark of a woman blessed with faith. She prays with power, not doubt. Prayer for her is not a ritual, it's a lifeline. It is not something she squeezes into her day. It is the rhythm of her day. Doubt may whisper in her ear that her words don't matter, but she knows better. She knows that prayer is the difference between fighting battles in her own strength and fighting with the armies of heaven at her back. That's why when she prays, her words carry authority. She's not begging as if God is reluctant. She's declaring as if God is faithful. Prayer to her is not wishful thinking. It is confident expectation. This kind of prayer is born from faith, not fear. Doubt wants to reduce prayer to empty repetition, like speaking into the air. But a woman of faith knows she is not speaking into emptiness. She is speaking into eternity. She believes that every prayer spoken in faith is stored up, remembered, and acted on in God's perfect timing. She doesn't let silence make her quit. She doesn't let delays make her doubt. She understands that unanswered prayers are not ignored prayers. They are prayers being prepared for the right moment. And that truth gives her power to keep praying when others would give up. When she prays, She doesn't just ask, she aligns. Her prayer life is not about bending God to her will, but about bending her will to God's. That's what gives her words their force. She can declare peace because she has surrendered to the Prince of Peace. She can speak healing because she is anchored in the great physician. She can intercede for her children, her family, her community because she knows prayer connects them to a source greater than anything the world can offer. Doubt would make her self-centered. Faith makes her kingdom-centered. That's the shift that transforms her prayers from powerless to powerful. Her prayers also carry persistence. A woman blessed with faith doesn't stop at the first sign of resistance. She presses in. She keeps knocking. She keeps asking. Because she knows prayer is not about timing. It's about trust. Others may get tired and walk away, but she keeps showing up at the throne of grace because she believes God honors perseverance. Doubt says, it's been too long, just quit. Faith says, if God hasn't answered yet, he's still writing the story. That's why her prayers have power. They are fueled by an endurance that outlasts disappointment. And when she prays, atmospheres shift. You can feel it. Her words are not weak. They carry weight. Her children sleep safer because of her prayers. Her household feels lighter because of her prayers. Her community finds strength because of her prayers. She doesn't just pray about problems. She prays solutions into existence. She doesn't just talk about change. She prays change down. Doubt makes people complain about situations, but faith makes her confront situations on her knees where the real power is released. That is why those who know her value her prayers, because they've seen the evidence of what happens when she goes to war in the spirit. Most importantly, her prayers are anchored in relationship. She doesn't talk to a distant God. She speaks to a Father who loves her. That intimacy fuels her faith. She doesn't have to wonder if he hears her. She knows he does. She doesn't have to question if he cares. She's seen his care in her life over and over again. And because she knows his heart, she can pray with confidence, without hesitation, without doubt. That's why her prayers don't just fill the room. They fill heaven. They are powerful not because of her voice, but because of the faith behind her voice. And that is the mark of a woman blessed with faith. She stands when others fall. That is the unmistakable mark of faith at work in her life. Trials will come. Storms will rise. Life will hit harder than she ever imagined. And yet, while many collapse under the pressure, she refuses to bow. Not because she has no pain, not because she has no weakness, but because her faith gives her the strength to remain upright when the world expects her to break. Standing doesn't mean she feels no weight. It means she has learned how to carry it without letting it crush her. Life has taught her that everything temporary can collapse in an instant. Health can fail, money can vanish, friends can betray, dreams can shatter. That's why she doesn't build her hope on things that can fall apart. She builds on the unshakable. When others are standing on sand, she has planted her feet on the rock. That's why when the winds blow, she is still there. She doesn't escape storms, but storms cannot erase her. Her ability to stand is not because life is easier for her, but because her foundation is stronger than what is shaking her. This strength is not loud or flashy. It is often quiet, steady, and unseen by most. People may look at her and wonder how she keeps going. They don't know the tears she cried in private, the nights she wanted to give up, the battles she fought in silence. But every time she was tempted to fall, faith whispered, hold on. Don't quit. God is not done. And so, while others surrendered to the weight of life, she chose to stand. Standing becomes her testimony, living proof that faith gives resilience even when the circumstances give every reason to collapse. Her stand is also a stand for righteousness. In a culture that bends truth to convenience, she refuses to compromise. Others may fall into temptation, give in to pressure, or conform to what's popular, but she won't. Faith gives her courage to say no when everyone else is saying yes. Faith gives her the vision to see beyond the moment, to recognize that compromise today can cost destiny tomorrow. She knows standing isn't always celebrated, but she also knows standing is always rewarded. That's why her convictions do not bend with the crowd. They are anchored in eternity. And when she stands, she doesn't stand just for herself. She becomes a pillar for those around her. Her children draw courage from her strength. Her friends borrow hope from her resilience. Her community looks at her life and finds reason to believe again. She becomes the evidence that faith can carry you through seasons that should have destroyed you. She becomes the example that standing is possible when surrender seems easier. Her endurance inspires others to rise back up, to keep fighting, to stop letting life define their limits. Standing is contagious, and she spreads it everywhere she goes. What makes her stand unshakable is not her willpower. It is her faith. She doesn't pretend to have all the answers. She doesn't claim to be invincible, but she knows she serves a God who cannot fail. That's why when the storms roar, when the enemy pushes, when the world shakes, she is still there. She may bend, but she does not break. She may stumble, but she does not fall, because her faith is not in her ability to stand. It is in the God who holds her up. And that is why she remains. When others collapse, she speaks life, not death. You can tell what lives inside a person by the words that come out of their mouth. A woman blessed with faith has learned the power of her tongue, and she refuses to use it carelessly. Words are not just sounds, they are seeds. They either plant life or plant destruction. While others complain, criticize, and curse their circumstances, she declares hope, truth, and vision. She has learned that her words have the power to shape her environment, so she refuses to waste them on negativity. This doesn't mean she ignores reality. She sees the challenges, she feels the pain, she acknowledges the struggles. But instead of amplifying the darkness, she chooses to release light. When sickness tries to invade her home, she doesn't keep repeating fear. She speaks healing. When financial pressure tries to choke her peace, she doesn't keep rehearsing lack. She declares provision. When discouragement knocks at the door, she doesn't invite it in. She responds with faith. She understands that speaking death only multiplies despair, but speaking life multiplies hope, and hope is what carries her forward. Her words also have authority because they flow from faith. Doubt-filled speech drains strength, but faith-filled speech builds it. She knows her words are not just for herself. They shape the atmosphere for everyone around her. When her children are anxious, her words calm them. When her spouse is discouraged, her words strengthen him. When her friends are broken, her words lift them. She doesn't simply describe the situation, she declares the solution. Her speech becomes a bridge from where things are to where God has promised they will be. That's the difference between someone who reacts with fear and someone who responds with faith. And her life proves that what you say consistently, you eventually see. She has spoken prayers into reality, declared victories before they arrived, and called forth peace in the middle of storms. Others may think her words are too bold, too unrealistic, too ambitious. But she knows that her words are not standing on thin air. They are standing on God's promises. Faith has trained her to speak in alignment with destiny, not with doubt. And over time, her words become testimony after testimony that life spoken in faith produces results. This discipline of speaking life also protects her. She refuses to let gossip, bitterness, or negativity flow from her lips because she knows those words will eventually circle back. She guards her mouth the way a warrior guards her weapon because she knows every word is either fighting for her or against her. Others may waste time tearing people down, but she invests her words in building people up. Others may use their tongue to curse what they don't understand, but she uses hers to bless what God is doing, even when it doesn't make sense. Her speech reveals her heart, and her heart reveals her faith. The most powerful thing about her words is that they outlive her. What she declares today creates a legacy for tomorrow. Her children will remember the prayers she spoke over them. Her friends will never forget the encouragement she gave when they were at their lowest. Her community will be shaped by the words she sowed into it. Death speaks destruction, but life speaks legacy. And when she speaks, her words echo far beyond the moment. That is the evidence of faith overflowing through her mouth. She doesn't just talk. This she transforms with every word she releases. She chooses purpose over comfort. That's one of the clearest signs of a woman blessed with faith. Comfort is seductive. It calls you to settle, to stay safe, to avoid risk. But comfort never produces destiny. A woman of faith knows that every great calling comes with sacrifice. She refuses to stay stuck in the shallow waters of what's easy when she's been called into the deep waters of what's eternal. Her faith pushes her beyond the limits of convenience and into the bold pursuit of purpose. Choosing purpose means saying yes to things that don't always make sense in the moment. She may step into assignments that feel bigger than her, but she does it anyway. She may walk away from opportunities that look appealing but don't align with her calling. While others chase comfort, she chases obedience. She knows comfort can give her temporary relief, but only purpose can give her eternal fulfillment. That's why she doesn't just ask, "What feels good?" She asks, "What is God calling me to do?" And once she hears the answer, she moves forward with determination. This choice isn't always celebrated. People may misunderstand her, question her, or even criticize her. They may tell her she's foolish for turning down the easy path, or too ambitious for chasing something bigger than herself. But she doesn't live for applause. She lives for alignment. She doesn't need validation from those who can't see her vision. She understands that comfort pleases people, but purpose pleases God. And when she must choose between the two, she chooses purpose every time, because she knows the cost of comfort is too high if it means missing her calling. Purpose also stretches her. It pulls her out of her limits and demands growth. Comfort would allow her to stay small, to hide her gifts, to avoid pressure. But purpose forces her to develop, to sharpen her skills, to rise to levels she never thought she could reach. At times it's uncomfortable, even painful, but she understands that growth always is. Faith convinces her that the discomfort of obedience today will produce the harvest of destiny tomorrow. So she embraces the stretch, knowing it is shaping her into who she was always meant to be. And in choosing purpose over comfort, she becomes a model for others. People around her see her courage, her discipline, her willingness to do what others won't. They see the sacrifices she makes and the results that follow. Her life speaks louder than any speech ever could. Without even trying, she inspires others to stop playing small and start pursuing the greater call on their lives. She proves that it is possible to live a life of meaning, but only if you're willing to pay the price of leaving comfort behind. Above all, her choice is anchored in trust. She knows that purpose doesn't always come with clarity. Sometimes she steps forward not knowing where the road will lead, but she moves anyway. Faith tells her that obedience is her job and outcome is God's job. Comfort would keep her chained to the familiar, but faith breaks those chains and sets her free to pursue what she was created for. She knows the safest place is not in comfort. It is in purpose. And that's why she keeps walking forward, even when the path is steep, because she knows she is walking in destiny.